Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Uncertainty over federal funding and a special election are stirring up a debate over the San Diego County budget. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. County supervisors will vote tomorrow on whether to extend the deadline for adopting a budget. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen breaks down both sides of the issue.
The Trump administration has been threatening deep cuts to social services administered by the county government. County budgets are typically adopted by June 30th, though state law allows a budget vote as late as October. Supervisor Monica Montgomery Stepp, a Democrat, says the later deadline will give the county more clarity on funding for services like health care and food assistance for the poor and disabled.
All of these are federally funded. We do not know what's going to happen to them. It is not prudent for us to move forward and adopt a full-on budget for a fiscal year that we have no idea what the impacts will be.
Supervisor Joel Anderson, a Republican, is opposing the budget delay. He held a press conference Monday saying cuts are inevitable and the budget vote should not be postponed.
It's always easier for elected officials to kick the can down the road rather than address the rough, tough decisions that government needs to do to work for its citizens.
There's another reason Montgomery Stepp wants a later budget deadline: the vacancy on the Board of Supervisors in District 1, which covers the South Bay. Voters there are casting ballots in a special election on Tuesday. If the race goes to a runoff, District 1 voters won't have representation at the county until after the June 30th budget deadline has passed. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Tomorrow night, we will have a clearer idea of what voters want in District 1, which includes the border with Mexico. In recent weeks, KPBS talked with 7 candidates listed on the ballot. We asked them about the local debate on sanctuary policies and how much the county should work with the federal government.
I would expand it to make sure that it's not just a symbolic gesture or non-implementable policy, such as the one that was passed, where legally the county board cannot tell the sheriff how to enforce the law because that's their constitutional and statutorily given right as an elected official.
From a humanitarian perspective, I advocate for the rights of everyone in our county and advocate for their protections. So I will work alongside those federal entities so long as they are respecting, the legal protections of those who are residing here.
I've been on the record as saying that I do not support it. The state of California already has laws in place that basically stipulate that if a person is wanted for murder or rape, that they will be essentially sent over to ICE.
I think that comes down to state law, but I would definitely work to do everything we could to get law enforcement to work with the Border Patrol and with the other federal authorities in order to make sure, especially in the area where you get criminal that has been caught and captured. You need to get them out of the country or in jail somewhere. We need to get them off our streets. We do not want these criminals out there on our streets.
I oppose being a sanctuary county. Our immigrant community is a very, very important community to us. And you, right now, by being a sanctuary county, when somebody who is a violent predator, who has raped, murdered, or assaulted somebody, instead of getting them deported, you're putting them back into the immigrant community, where the immigrant community will be the victims of it. We need to keep our immigrant community safe and protect them.
I think we need to have a more humane approach to having people that are in this community that are obeying the law, that are being good citizens, that are not hurting others, and those that do, well, they need to have consequences enacted.
My heart is always going to be with the people that are looking at a better life for them and their family. My heart is always there, but as an elected official, I also have to be mindful that, you know, we have many issues that we have to address. And first and foremost, our community is always looking to feel safe in their home, right? I'm not the type of person that wants to defund the police. Chula Vista is the safest incorporated city in the county. We have an excellent police force, and, you know, we're very proud of that.
KPBS.org will have results tomorrow night as soon as they are announced by the county registrar of voters. You'll find it on our webpage. KPBS.org is also where you'll find the KPBS Voter Hub in English and in Spanish. We have all of our coverage of the special election for county supervisor. There is also information on ballot drop-off sites and voting centers. Polls will close tomorrow at 8 p.m. If no candidate wins more than 50%, the top two candidates will compete in a runoff election on July 1st. The Supreme Court is pausing a deadline to return a deported man to the United States. Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia is from Maryland and has never been charged with a crime. The Trump administration admits that he was mistakenly sent to a prison in El Salvador. Today, Chief Justice John Roberts granted a stay on a court-imposed midnight deadline to return Abrego Garcia. The delay allows both sides to present more arguments before a formal decision is then made. International students across the country have had their visas revoked in recent weeks. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas says that includes 5 students from UC San Diego.
5 UC San Diego students had their F1 visas terminated last week. A 6th student was detained at the border and deported to their home country. That's according to a message sent to students and staff on Friday. Chancellor Pradeep Khosla wrote that the federal government has not explained the reasons behind those visa terminations. Arian Dixit leads UC San Diego's Student Civil Liberties Union. He says the announcement has led to fear and paranoia among other student visa holders.
I was really shocked, and I responded immediately by asking all of my international friends whether they're safe, what their plans are going to be in the future, since a lot of them were planning to go back home for summer, and now we're not sure if that's possible.
The news comes as the federal government terminates student visas across the country. Last month, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he was seeking out students involved in pro-Palestinian campus protests.
We gave you a visa to come and study and get a degree, not to become a social activist that tears up our university campuses. And if we've given you a visa and then you decide to do that, we're going to take it away.
The California chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations condemned the visa revocations today, saying the Trump administration was targeting students based on their First Amendment activity. UC San Diego students are planning a rally in support of international students on Wednesday. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Tonight, more of that marine layer setting up as temperatures go down into the lower 50s. We really are going to stay fairly quiet as we head through tonight, but guess what? The numbers are headed up this week. We're going to be talking about the heat really building in our desert communities as we get well above historical average. I'll have the full forecast coming up.
It's been another volatile day for the stock market as investors and companies try to figure out how tariffs will impact their bottom lines. The Dow Jones Index lost around 350 points. It's a drop of about 1%, but far less than some of the losses Wall Street saw last week. President Trump is threatening even higher tariffs for China if they impose their own fees on American products. In Mexico, President Claudia Sheinbaum is trying to navigate what the Trump tariffs mean for her country. Speaking today in Mexico City, she gave some insight on the balancing act that goes into Mexico's response.
Porque sería muy fácil, pues le ponemos aranceles al acero y al aluminio. Pues sí, nada más que eso va a aumentar los precios aquí. Entonces, pues todo eso, y estamos en comunicación permanente con las y los empresarios mexicanos.
President Sheinbaum says her goal is to avoid imposing reciprocal tariffs on the United States, particularly on steel and aluminum. She says doing so would lead to higher prices for Mexican consumers. Mexico's economic secretary plans to visit Washington in the coming days to meet with U.S. officials. The American auto industry relies heavily on Mexico for vehicles and the parts that are used to make them. Those factories are grappling with what the future holds. Gustavo Valdez shows us some of the work that they do and how Mexico is trying to find new ways to keep those jobs going.
This is what it looks like inside a Mexican factory that's been making and sending car parts to the United States for more than 70 years. But that's changing. At Megaflux in Mexico City, they produce water pumps, hydroelectric turbines, motors, and generators.
We make them upon request. We export more than half of our production to the United States and Canada.
Now, this assembly line is also manufacturing electric cars and buses, which will mostly be used in Mexico, amid fears that U.S. President Donald Trump's new tariffs could trigger a global trade war.
The best way to deal with tariffs is to buy locally. If you have an automotive industry and want to manufacture electric vehicles, sell them domestically or look at South America.
The company makes this bus called Taruk, which means roadrunner in the local Yaqui language. It's the first electric bus manufactured in Mexico, and it's expected to run in Baja California. It's part of Plant Mexico, a program launched by Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, giving companies incentives to invest in domestic production and generate jobs.
I think we're experiencing a situation that could also become dramatic. But having our own technology allows you to better manage your next steps as a country.
Mexican companies now thinking of ways to expand domestically rather than across the border.
And that was Gustavo Valdez reporting. Smartphones are another product that will be heavily impacted by the Trump administration's tariffs. The Wall Street Journal reports Apple may rely more on India to ship its iPhones to the U.S. President Trump is threatening even higher tariffs on China than were originally announced. So India is where Apple has produced the iPhone for years. Apple plans to make 25 million iPhones in India this year, most of them for the U.S. market. Millions of Americans rely on the stock market for their retirement plans. That's why there is so much interest on the numbers coming out of Wall Street. So what should you keep in mind when it comes to investments like a 401k? Maribel Gonzalez spoke to financial experts to get their advice.
Whiplash on Wall Street. On Monday, U.S. stocks opened in bear market territory. That means nearing a 20% decline from a recent market peak as a global trade war causes financial fears.
This is a shock that markets haven't really dealt with before.
But what does this mean for you? Financial experts say, don't panic.
This is not the time to be selling and running for the hills. If you're not in, this is a good time to get in.
But having cash on hand outside the markets is necessary.
My recommendation is about 40% in cash and bonds, cash in positions like money markets or high yield savings where you're getting interest on it.
Experts say if you're near retirement age, working one additional year is one way to meet your long-term retirement needs.
Don't let the short term affect your planning for the long term. And for people that are just retiring, retirement is a long-term plan.
Cutting back on spending and diversifying your investments may help too.
You don't want to have to sell stocks at depressed prices. That will burn through your nest egg at a much faster rate.
And if you're not already doing so, invest.
Often the best days in the market follow some of the worst.
Most of all, experts say stay the course because historically, the market recovers.
You've got to be in it to win it, even in the face of volatility.
I'm Maribel Gonzalez reporting.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump threatens more tariffs on China if it doesn't back down. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Thousands of people in San Diego joined a nationwide day of protest on Saturday. It was the latest in several rallies and demonstrations that we've seen lately in response to the Trump administration's mass layoffs of federal workers. KPBS photojournalists captured these images from downtown San Diego, and we have more in a slideshow that you can view at kpbs.org. U.S. Health Department employees are some of the latest to be laid off as part of the Trump administration's efforts to shrink federal agencies. The department includes Head Start. It's a federal child care program. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas tells us about the changes one local Head Start program is already seeing.
Head Start serves families living at or below the poverty line with kids aged 5 and under. Several organizations in San Diego County receive federal funding through the Head Start program.
It's more than just a preschool. We're offering health care, job training to parents. We're offering essential resources to break the cycles of poverty.
Until last week, questions about Head Start grant funding, training, staffing ratios, and other regulations went to the regional office in San Francisco. Last Tuesday, that office and 4 others closed.
Our grant manager, it was a program specialist in San Francisco. He's not there. So I know there are a handful of issues that we had sent out early Monday morning, early Tuesday morning that have gone unresponded to. At this time, we don't know who we are consolidating with. We don't know who our primary point of contact will be.
Avinia worries this could delay their access to federal funding. It makes up 95% of MAC's child development budget.
We use our funds to pay upfront for our payroll for all of our staff, and within several days we are reimbursed for that payroll, and so on and so forth. So if we submit our payment for our reimbursement and no one responds, 1 pay period and 2 pay periods and 3 pay periods and 4 pay periods, we're now out of pocket multiple pay periods without anyone answering our emails or reimbursing us. And
the Head Start cuts were part of layoffs across the Department of Health and Human Services. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wrote on social media that the overhaul is about realigning the department with its core mission to stop the chronic disease epidemic. Senator Alex Padilla and dozens of other senators condemned the staff cuts in a letter to Secretary Kennedy. They wrote that it, quote, undermines the department's role in administering and conducting oversight of early childhood programs. KPBS reached out to the department for comment, but has not yet heard back. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Well, we do have some pretty quiet weather for the next couple of hours, and actually the return of our marine layer coming back as we head through tonight. You'll notice that out there, some of the valleys mostly as you get to the coastal locations. Meanwhile, the gusty winds continue through tomorrow into the mountains, and then we're turning up the heat. Yes, the numbers headed up for the middle of the week. First up tonight, 52 the low in the city. As you work your way towards Ramona, we're at 42. Borrego Springs falling to 55 degrees. Heading into tomorrow, dry, nice pattern in place as high pressure starts to build overhead. We'll keep things fairly quiet. It's still a little breezy for the mountainous areas as you work your way though throughout the state and even off towards the east, towards Arizona. We will find pretty dry times and bright times at that. Sunshine puts us at 69 for tomorrow. Same thing for Chula Vista. Ramona coming in at 79 degrees and Mount Laguna topping out at 63. But the days ahead do warm up for us in several different locations. First, the coastal communities going up into the mid-70s for your Wednesday, and we'll stay in the 70s as we head through Thursday and Friday. That's the kind of warmth that kicks around for the week. As we work our way into the inland communities, staying in the 80s Wednesday through Friday here, and overnight lows not all that cold for us as we keep things fairly quiet. Into the mountainous areas, even those numbers inch their way into the 60s pretty quickly with plenty of sunshine. It's a good time here as we keep things relatively quiet. Just note that it will be still a little breezy for your Tuesday, but the sunshine remains for us even into the upcoming weekend. And as we work our way into the desert communities, you can find a lot of 90s on the board, but we're headed back towards the triple digits by the time we get into Friday. For some spots across our desert areas, it could be the first run into the triple digits for 2025 as we stay very warm right through the end of this week. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
This week, here's Lozano. Lozano's in! Lozano!
What a scene on Saturday night at Snapdragon Stadium. San Diego FC beat the Seattle Sounders to keep their hot start going. Star player Lozano scored his first goal. Wave FC will return to Snapdragon Stadium this weekend. San Diego FC will be on the road in Colorado.
He struck him on, the Padres win. They come back 4 runs down to beat the Cubs. 8-7 San Diego.
And the Padres are back on track after a couple of losses this weekend. They won a back-and-forth game against the Cubs with Fernando Tatis Jr. scoring the winning run in the 9th inning. Up next is something the Padres have never done before. They'll play a series in Sacramento against the Athletics after the team relocated from Oakland. For more than 100 years, it stood in downtown San Diego telling passers-by the correct time of day. But in 2018, the iconic Jessop's clock was put into storage. KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us about an effort to put the clock back into service in a new place.
The year was 1907. Joseph Jessup had relocated his family from England to San Diego. He opened a jewelry store downtown on 5th Street, what is now the Alma Hotel. He built this clock to advertise his new store and to, as it proudly proclaimed on its face, tell San Diegans the correct time of day. There it stood for almost the next 80 years. That was until 1985, when Jessop's Jewelers and the clock moved, but not far, just over to what was then the brand new Horton Plaza shopping center. It stayed here until 2018. After being vandalized several times, the clock was packed up and moved to the San Diego History Center.
Well, you know, the History Center is the perfect location for it.
Yeah. That's Jim Jessup, Joseph Jessup's great-grandson. Ownership of the clock is shared by him and several other family members, but he's in charge of it and its future.
Right behind that door, you'll see the clock.
Ah. Oh, wow.
Now, I'll tell you, this is the first time we have shown the clock since it was crated up in 2018.
When it was dismantled, the clock was packed up in several boxes. This is what most people remember, one of 3 faces of this magnificent creation, and it's actually not a clock, per se.
The Jessup clock is made like a giant pocket watch.
That's because Joseph Jessup was first and foremost a maker of pocket watches.
There is no other clock in the world like the Jessup clock. And so he made it the way he knew how to make it. He estimated all the gear ratios that would turn the 22 hands in the clock, and it kept good time for 100 years.
The clock is a marvel of engineering. One day, Jim Jessup was talking to a clockmaker, and he asked how, in the days before even slide rules, much less digital technology, how his great-grandfather did it.
And the clockmaker shrugs and says, I just don't know. But it took some real magic for him to be able to put this whole clock together.
In addition to San Diego, the clock showed the time for 12 other great cities of the world. Places like New York, London, Paris, Berlin, Mexico City, Calcutta. And when it came to Calcutta, the elder Jessup had to get creative. The introduction of daylight saving time years later meant a bit of extra magic was needed for the clock's movement.
When you go to daylight savings time, we move 1 hour. Calcutta would move 1/2 hour. Ooh. So he built all of those ratios into the setting of the clocks on this, the hands on this dial, so that it would adjust 1/2 hour for Calcutta.
As far as the clock keeping the correct time, Jessup says there's a funny story about that, which involves the Santa Fe Depot just a few blocks away.
My great uncle, Joe Jessup, was talking to a fellow that ran the train station several blocks from a store. Yeah. And he said, you know, when the train whistle blows, we set the clock. And the guy laughed and he said, well, you know, we come by the clock and set our train whistle. So it's, you know, there were 2 ways to tell time in downtown San Diego, and the Jessup clock was only one of them.
So many stories, so much history. But now Jim Jessup has his sights set on the clock's future. The family, in coordination with the History Center, is in the process of raising money to restore the clock and bring it to a final, fitting place. They need $2 million to do that and to place it here. These artists' renderings show what it will look like in a redesigned History Center gallery. Then they need $2 million more to endow the clock.
So that it will be taken care of forever. So when San Diegans come to see the clock, they will be seeing something that is just like it was on the streets of San Diego, and they'll be able to see it forevermore.
Jessup says they want all that to happen by 2028, a time when the clock will begin its final chapter, when all of us can enjoy it for time immemorial. John Carroll, KPBS News.
And if you would like to contribute to the Clock Fund, just go to SanDiegoHistoryCenter.org and then click on Support. And there you'll see the Jessup Clock Foundation. Here is a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman talks about President Trump's tariff agenda and how it will affect a highly interconnected global economy. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.